The cupcake sat in the center of my kitchen table. Chocolate, store-bought, nothing fancy. Just enough to pretend it was a celebration. The candle I'd placed in the middle hadn't been lit. I kept checking the time. 8:04 p.m. Another birthday almost done, quietly erased. No missed calls, no texts, not even a Facebook notification from my parents. I gave them all day. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. 33 years and counting. But every year, some part of me still holds out. Still believes this year might be the one they remember. Still makes the mistake of hoping. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I'd moved past anger so long ago it felt foreign. I'd settled somewhere deeper, somewhere you end up when you're not even worth disappointing anymore. It's not rage, it's something colder than that, something quieter. I stared at the waxy frosting and the stiff candle. Not worth lighting, not anymore. Growing up, I learned that family roles were never up for debate. Denise was the star, the one everyone called gifted, radiant, unforgettable. I was steady, the helper, the one who never needed much. At 16, Denise had a string quartet playing in the backyard and a custom cake flown in from LA. For my 18th, I got a grocery store cake and a "we'll celebrate next week" that never happened. I remember asking Mom once why Denise always got more attention. "She's just more seen," she said. Like that explained anything. Like visibility was a personality trait, not a choice people make when they decide who gets to matter. So I learned early. Stay quiet. Don't ask for too much. If I ask for nothing, maybe I'll get something. But what I got was silence. I scrolled through Instagram out of habit. It's a form of self-harm, really, expecting pain and looking for it anyway. Sure enough, Denise had posted a full spread from her branding showcase, held earlier that day. And on my birthday, guests posted clips of her speech. A local influencer tagged my parents. "Incredible night celebrating the most inspiring woman I know." Mom replied with a comment full of exclamation marks and hearts. "So proud of you, Denise, our star always shining." Dad followed with, "Couldn't have said it better. Our girl." Our girl. I wasn't even mentioned. Not a tag, not a like, not a ghost of a presence. I kept scrolling, saw photos of my parents posing beside Denise at the event, Mom's arm around her, Dad holding a bouquet. I wasn't uninvited. I was never considered. I turned off the screen and locked my phone in a drawer, not out of spite, but because expectation, when paired with memory, turns to grief. I leaned back, eyes closed, trying to find something, anything, to make the sting feel less raw. I remembered being 17, staying behind from a trip to care for our grandmother, while Denise toured colleges. No one asked, I just did it. It was the right thing. I remembered staying late to finish a project so Denise could go out with friends. I remembered Mom calling me the responsible one, like that was a reward. When exactly did being dependable turn into being invisible? I opened my laptop, started typing a letter to myself. I wrote one line. "You deserved more." Then I deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, but because I didn't want to read it twice. I stood, walked to the trash, and threw the cupcake away. Still whole, still untouched. I walked to the living room, stopped at the window. The city outside pulsed with life. Cars zipped by under dim streetlights. People who weren't forgotten. People being toasted in restaurants or hugged in family living rooms. I whispered, "If no one will celebrate me, I will." I sat down with my laptop again, logged into my savings account. I had more than I remembered. Years of working late, skipping holidays, bonuses no one asked about. I searched BMW Roseville, scanned listings. My eyes stopped at one model, midnight blue, clean, understated, no flair, just power in a quiet frame. Like me, I picked up my phone, dialed. A voice answered. "BMW Roseville, this is Paul. I want to come in tomorrow," I said, "for a test drive." "Any model you're interested in?" "The X5, I said. "Midnight blue." There was a pause. "We can definitely arrange that." "Thanks," I said. "I'm not looking to test it. I'm looking to buy." After hanging up, I walked back to the kitchen, picked up the matchbook I kept in the drawer, lit the candle on the cupcake before throwing it away, just to see the flame burn. Not for a wish, for proof. This year, I wasn't waiting to be remembered. This year, I was remembering myself. By the time I pulled back into my apartment complex, the sky had dimmed into that gray-blue silence that only hits when the days let you down quietly. I parked my new BMW with care, not pride. There wasn't any music playing, no fanfare. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I just didn't want to disappear again. I stood beside the car a moment longer than needed, watching the glow of my headlights cast across the wet pavement. The reflection looked sharper than I felt, clean, solid, like the version of me I kept trying to believe in. Upstairs, I set my bag down, kicked off my shoes, and walked barefoot to the window. The city buzzed beyond the glass. I took the photo under that glow, BMW parked just right, slick with the reflection of the streetlights like a polished answer to a question no one ever asked me. Caption? I typed slowly. Bought myself a birthday gift. Turns out I remember me. I hit post. Didn't expect much. Just wanted the truth out in the world once, unfiltered, not watered down for their comfort. The response came faster than I was ready for. Likes from people I hadn't spoken to in years. College friends, my old boss from Denver, even someone I barely remembered from a design conference. All of them saying some version of, "You earned it." And then silence. A full hour passed before the phone lit up again. My mother. No text. No warning. Just her name, bold on the screen, like it hadn't been missing all day. I let it ring 3 times, picked up with a voice flat enough to balance on. She didn't even breathe before asking, "Is that car real?" That's what she led with. Not, "How are you?" Not, "Happy birthday," just suspicion. I said nothing. Let the silence make its point. She filled it, of course. "That's an $80,000 vehicle, Marina. What exactly are you trying to prove?" "I'm not proving anything," I said. "I just exist." Thought maybe it was time you all noticed. There was static, or maybe it was just her not knowing what to say. Then, in the background, my father chimed in like he always did when she wanted backup. "You used your bonus for that?" he asked, voice full of judgment dressed as concern. "That's excessive. Are you trying to embarrass us?" Embarrass them. For existing outside their script. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Mom spoke again, clipped and cool. "We need to talk. Family dinner. Sunday. 6 p.m. Don't be late." She didn't ask. She scheduled me like a task. "We need to talk," she'd said. But we never really did we? That word, meeting, rattled in my chest like a bell I didn't ring. The phone call ended without a goodbye. Typical. 5 minutes later, the family group chat came alive like a triggered alarm. Denise, of course, was first. "OMG, Mom and Dad are freaking out, LOL." Still no happy birthday, not one. Just passive panic veiled as sarcasm. Then came the others, cousins, aunts, one uncle I hadn't heard from in years. Comments like, "Didn't know you were into flashy cars." Or worse, "Are you okay, Marina?" Like visibility was instability. I stared at the thread, thumb hovering over leave chat. Didn't press it. But I wanted to. In silence, I scrolled back through years of that same thread. Holiday plans I wasn't looped in on. Denise's recital photos. Baby shower invites I got after the fact. And still, they called me the distant one. When I was quiet, I was praised for being stable. Now I was visible, and they called it a crisis. I closed the app, sat back in the chair, let the ache rise and fall in waves that felt less like sadness and more like recognition. Dinner. Sunday. A part of me wanted to skip it, wanted to remind them what silence actually looked like. But something in me refused to step back this time. I thought about the last family dinner I went to, Denise's graduation. They told me not to bring a guest, said it was just for immediate family, like I wasn't enough company on my own. No, I was going, not for them, not for some illusion of closure, but because I wasn't afraid to take up space anymore. I whispered it aloud. "I'll go, and I'll drive myself." I arrived right on time, not early enough to appear overeager, not late enough to fuel their narrative. Parked in full view, my new BMW shining against the beige siding of the house I once called home. Dad's sedan sat in its usual spot, dull and familiar, like everything inside. Through the front bay window, I could already see them, wine glasses in hand, laughing about something that probably didn't concern me. I didn't move, just sat there for a moment, hands still on the wheel, watching the silhouettes of a family I belonged to by blood but not by presence. I stepped out with a bottle of wine, something decent, mid-shelf, not a peace offering, just enough to say, I showed up. The front door opened before I rang the bell. Mom, lips already stretched into a smile she'd rehearsed for others, not me. Come in, she said, backing away. We're already at the table. No hug, no happy birthday, not even belated. Just those 7 words. We're already at the table. The house looked the same, smelled the same. Even the rug by the entrance still curled at the corner. I could have tripped on it 1,000 times, and no one would notice. Inside, the table was full, visually, not emotionally. Denise sat closest to Dad, her back straight, a confidence she wore like perfume, the kind that sticks to furniture. I was directed with a subtle gesture to the far end of the table, next to the swinging kitchen door, not near anyone, a physical afterthought. The plates were all matching china, except mine. Everyone had crystal water glasses. Mine was plastic, not even the good kind, those throwaway ones you keep in bulk under the sink for kids or strangers. I didn't say anything, just smiled, nodded, and sat down. That's the role, right? Be present, but unobtrusive. Like background music nobody bothers to change. I watched Denise soak up praise for some recent local TV appearance. Dad chuckled, Mom beamed, and even an old neighbor at the table clapped like she was in the presence of royalty. Meanwhile, I studied the grooves in the table, not because I was uninterested, but because I'd learned that looking interested made them feel obligated to include me, and they never liked being reminded of that. They've made it clear, I told myself, I'm here, but I'm not meant to belong. Mom raised her glass. To family milestones, she declared. And to Denise's incredible new partnership. What a win for all of us. Glasses clinked. Applause. Denise smiled, her practiced modesty on display. It's a team effort, she said, before glancing at me. I nodded. What was I supposed to say? Congrats again. Must be nice to get the room every time. Instead, I reached for the bread. As a kid, I remember her piano recitals being grand affairs. Red carpet, catered desserts. My science fair project that won the district. I think Mom mailed in the permission slip late and forgot to show up. You learn, after a while, which victories are quiet because they weren't meant to be seen. Halfway through the meal, Mom turned to me. Like it had just occurred to her I was still sitting there. You've always been so solid, dear, she said, slicing through her roast. But Denise, she just has that spark. The fork paused halfway to my mouth. I forced a smile. Dad added, chuckling, Some people are born to shine. Others hold the flashlight. Laughter. I excused myself, saying I needed the restroom. Walked past the hallway photos, every milestone framed and polished, most of them starring someone else. In the mirror, I met my own eyes. Calm, focused. I'm not the flashlight, I whispered. I lit my own damn path. Back at the table, I didn't ease back into the silence. Instead, I set my hands on the table, fingers folded, and asked plainly, Did anyone here remember what today was? It was like hitting pause on a movie. Utensils froze. Chewing stopped. Eye contact scattered. Denise blinked. Oh, your birthday was last week, right? Mom glanced down. We were going to plan something, but you've been distant. I didn't flinch. Distant, I repeated, or just not deferential. The air thickened. No one answered. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded printout of my hotel redesign award, the one featured in the trade magazine last month. Opened it, smoothed it out, and placed it beside my plate. Said nothing. Let it sit there. Like me, I didn't sleep much after that dinner. My body shut down, sure, but my mind kept cataloging every inch of the table, every sentence, every glass that wasn't like mine. By 5, I was already up, sitting in front of my coffee maker like it owed me answers. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, it presses on you. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, letting the bitter steam rise into my face as if it might burn something loose. I sat down at my desk, opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Files, random tax documents, a USB drive I'd labeled Portfolio plus FAFSA docs during my senior year of college. I plugged it in without thinking. I wasn't searching for anything. I just didn't want to sit still. Emails, old drafts, recommendation letters. And then it hit me. An unread email from 2013. Subject line: Finalist, the Castor Women in Design Fund. My name right there in the opening line. I never got that scholarship. My breath stuttered. I clicked again, scanning, waiting for some line about eligibility issues or application errors. Instead, I found a follow-up, a formal note from the foundation. Award assigned via parental consent redirection to Denise Vaughn. There it was. My name crossed out between the lines. My work, my application, my spot. Redirected. I sat back. Hard. There was a copy sent to my mother's email. Not me. Not even a CC. I remembered that summer. I stayed home. Denise took a summer design program in Napa. At the time, I thought she'd paid out of pocket or maybe gotten a grant. Turns out she got my scholarship. I could still hear Mom's voice, soft but firm. The foundation went another way, honey, but you're resilient. You'll bounce back. And I did, because that's what I was always expected to do. Resilient. Another word for you'll survive being overlooked. I printed out the email, sat on the floor with it like it was a court ruling. Not just on that year, but on the pattern. I glanced around, boxes of old trophies, projects, rolled-up prints. My name faded on most of them. The photo albums on Mom's shelves. I knew what was missing before even flipping a page. I thought about confronting Denise. But no, this wasn't her doing. She benefited, sure. But the scheme? That was all Mom. I took a photo of the email, saved it, uploaded it to 2 cloud drives. Proof. The paper never lies. By late afternoon, I was still on the floor when my phone lit up with a text. From Mom. Just wanted to say you looked lovely yesterday. Sorry things were awkward. I stared at the screen, didn't reply. Then another ping, this time a screenshot. A post from a woman named Clara, one of Mom's old social club friends. Met Denise's sister finally. Wow, she's the one in architecture, right? Funny how I never heard much about her from Marcia. The comments below poured in. Didn't even know they had another daughter. Guess she keeps a low profile. Always thought Denise was an only child. I screenshotted the post. Then again, in case someone deleted it later. That was it. Proof. Public proof. Not of malice, but of neglect. Invisibility doesn't need to shout. It just waits until someone else forgets to mention your name, and then it's permanent. That evening, I dialed her number. Not for an argument. I just needed to hear it. Did you redirect my scholarship in 2013? I asked. There was a pause, a long one. Then her voice. We did what was best at the time. Denise had momentum. So I was expendable? You've always been strong, she said. I didn't think you'd need the help. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't try to explain why that sentence hurt more than anything she'd said in years. I just hung up. I forwarded the scholarship screenshot to my email, labeled the subject, just in case. And I sat there, quiet, not broken, not anymore. The apartment didn't feel like home that morning. It felt like a waiting room, too clean, too quiet, too honest. I hadn't said much since that call with Mom. Just went through the motions, emails, reheated leftovers, staring at corners of the room like they might change if I blinked long enough. I deleted the family group chat, then re-downloaded it, then deleted it again. Eventually, I logged in, just to see. No new messages, not a single one addressed to me. I tapped through old threads, staring at words that used to feel like they had weight. Birthday gifts for Denise. Congrats on her new podcast. Photos of brunches I hadn't been invited to but was tagged in like I had been. Even a cruel message would have acknowledged me, I thought. Was I overreacting? Was I too sensitive? I hated how easily that question surfaced. Around noon, a knock broke the stillness. I stood for a moment, unsure if I wanted to answer it. Opened the door anyway, delivery man. Box in hand. Cake delivery, he said. For Denise Vaughn. I stared at it. A layered chocolate cake with raspberry frosting, neatly boxed, tied with a ribbon. I looked at the card. Happy birthday, Denise. So proud of you. Aunt Jill. Wrong name, wrong apartment. Or maybe not. Maybe it wasn't a mix-up. Maybe Aunt Jill really did forget I didn't live with Denise. I signed for it anyway, held it in both hands. They remembered to spell her name right, I whispered. I couldn't remember the last time someone spelled mine correctly. I stood in the kitchen, staring at it. Briefly thought about eating it, not out of spite, just to claim something. Anything. But I didn't. I carried it downstairs to Mrs. Alvarez, my neighbor who lived alone and always waved at me when I carried groceries. This isn't mine, I said, handing it to her. But it shouldn't go to waste. She smiled like I was handing her the keys to a holiday. I smiled back. Then walked upstairs and didn't say a word for the rest of the day. Later that night, I scrolled through the group chat again, saw photos from a baby shower last week, Denise's best friend. I didn't even know she was pregnant. Saw mentions of a brunch planned for next month. A text chain titled Vaughn Family Circle. I wasn't in it. I searched again. No invite, no thread, nothing. They'd made a new group. Without me, it wasn't a mistake. I remembered the time they forgot to book me a room for Denise's graduation weekend. I ended up staying at a motel outside town while they dined at the hotel restaurant and posted selfies with the caption, Family First. I closed the app. Not in rage, just resignation. Silence doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just sighs, softly. I opened a draft message to Mom. Let's just move on. No hard feelings. But I didn't send it. Instead, I stared at flights to Seattle. Imagined checking out. A week away. 2. Wondered if disappearing would finally give me some peace. But peace without presence isn't real. I thought about something I'd heard on a podcast once. Silence isn't peace, it's just the absence of noise. I closed the browser before I could click Book Now. I wasn't ready to vanish, not yet. I plugged in my phone, checked voicemails, nothing. Then found a voice memo I didn't remember saving. My goddaughter's voice, small and bright. I want to be like you, Auntie M. You make things people never forget. I sat back, eyes closed. That one line held me together. I renamed the file. Reasons Not to Disappear. I stood, walked into the kitchen, pulled out flour, sugar, cocoa powder, made a single cupcake. No frosting, no candle, just me. It wasn't meant for me, I said aloud, placing it on a plate. But this one is... The invitation came in a text from Mom. We're having a small lunch with the ladies this Friday. You can come by if you're free. Not, we'd love to have you. Not, we'd like you there. Just, if you're free. By the time I arrived, it was clear the small lunch was a full-scale luncheon. Catered, decorated, white wine flowing. The kind of setup that said we planned this a while ago and never thought of you until the chairs were already lined up. Denise stood near the entryway, wrapped in a blush-colored blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to be. Her laugh echoed through the foyer. Mom greeted her with a hand on her shoulder and a low, admiring hum. Me? I got a glance. Not a hug. Not a warm, you made it. Just, oh, Marina, take a seat anywhere, sweetheart. Except, I couldn't take a seat anywhere. There was one left. At the corner of the table again, near where the servers were moving in and out with trays. I sat without saying a word. Listened without adding anything. Watched my mother beam every time Denise spoke, every time someone clinked a glass in her direction. And I thought, if I stood up right now and walked out, would anyone notice, or would they just adjust the seating and move on? A woman I didn't recognize leaned over to Mom during introductions and asked, "And this is your daughter?" Mom smiled, one of those smiles people give when their brain is ahead of their mouth. "Yes, this is Emily. Marina, my youngest. The room chuckled, like it was charming, like it wasn't just another incision. Another woman said, "We didn't know you had another daughter." My smile didn't flinch, but inside I froze. I remembered senior year, honors night. They called every student's name. When they got to mine, the mic crackled. Someone whispered to the announcer. They skipped me, went right to the next. No explanation, just skipped. I went home that night and folded my certificate into 4 pieces, tucked it behind a drawer, never pulled it out again. They've forgotten my name so often, I started answering to silence. That night after the luncheon, I wrote my full name on a yellow post-it, bold, all caps, stuck it to my bathroom mirror. Marina Vaughn, no nicknames, no second guesses. It wasn't just my name they forgot that day. Denise walked in halfway through dessert, wearing a silver ring I recognized immediately, delicate, vintage, oval cut with a soft, brushed setting. I bought it for Mom's 50th birthday. I spent weeks finding it, dug through online antique shops, saved up between projects, had it cleaned and boxed with a handwritten card that said, "You've given us everything. Here's something from me." Denise held out her hand like it was nothing. "Cute, right?" she said. "Mom let me borrow it." Mom, who hadn't even looked my way since I sat down. I wanted to say something, not because I wanted it back, but because I wanted me back in that moment. But I didn't. I just smiled and added one more check mark to the long ledger I'd kept in my head. So I give. They pass it on, and I vanish somewhere in the transaction. Afterward, I declined the ride offer from one of the ladies and walked home. It wasn't far. The walk was quiet. Soft afternoon sun hit the sidewalk like it didn't care whose name was remembered and whose wasn't. I passed a kid drawing chalk shapes in the street. She wrote, "My world," in big slanted letters under a sun that barely looked like one. I stopped. Watched her a second too long. When did I stop claiming mine? All the work I've done, the spaces I've designed, the people I've helped, so many things shaped by my hands, with other people's names on the final page. At home, I pulled out my keepsake box. Inside, an old wedding invite addressed to Marina Vaughn, a baby shower envelope reading Maria Vaughn, a thank you note saying, "Marnie, thank you for the casserole." They couldn't get it right. Even in print, I opened the industry magazine that featured my hotel project. My name was in there, small, among a team list. I took a Sharpie and scrawled over the photo of the lobby I had designed from the floor up. Designed by Marina Vaughn. Then I took a picture of it, sent it to the office. "Frame this," I wrote. "For reception." And before closing the box, I whispered to no one, "You don't get to rewrite me anymore." The message came 2 days after the scholarship call. Mom's tone in the text was breezy, almost flippant. "We're just having a casual afternoon. Drop by if you're free." That "if you're free" wasn't new. It was her way of pretending like the invitation was optional, that my absence would be acceptable. Truth was, they had already assumed I wouldn't come, which is exactly why I would. This time, I chose my outfit with purpose, the same navy blazer I wore for the Architectural Digest interview. A simple blouse, slacks, subtle earrings, clean, unapologetic. I didn't come with an empty smile or a passive voice. I came with a framed print of the magazine page, the spread that showed the lobby I had designed. My name printed, top left, framed in matte black, wrapped in craft paper, tied with nothing. I pulled up to the house, parked directly in front, my BMW, polished, unmissable. I could see Mom peek through the blinds. Inside, everything was calm, almost too calm. As if rehearsed, the kind of calm that only happens when people know they've done something wrong but aren't ready to admit it. Denise was already there, curled effortlessly into the sofa like it belonged to her bones. Dad looked up, nodded once, then went back to sipping his soda. Mom was arranging cheese slices like it required brain surgery. I handed her the frame as I entered. No words, just placed it on the console table. Everyone was performing. I didn't. I sat. Waited. The doorbell rang. A family friend, Clara, someone I hadn't seen in years. As soon as she stepped in, she beamed at me. Marina, I saw your hotel in Architectural Digest. It was absolutely stunning. Before I could reply, Mom cut in. Yes, she said quickly. Denise helped pick the color scheme. She has such an eye. There it was. Not a cut, just a nudge, a redirection. Subtle, but deep. Everyone nodded politely. I didn't respond right away. They don't erase me by shouting, I thought. They do it with polite interruptions. I remembered being 22, winning the State Design Award, and having it listed in the alumni newsletter as a team collaboration with 3 classmates who contributed nothing. I leaned forward, looked Clara in the eye. Thank you, I said. I was the lead designer. Every inch is mine. There was a pause, a polite sip of wine from someone. Denise glanced away. Mom adjusted a coaster that didn't need adjusting. After dinner, I said I needed to use the restroom, but I didn't turn left toward the hallway. I turned right toward the living room wall. The gallery of framed memories stared back at me. Weddings, graduations, first homes. There it was. Denise's graduation photo, front and center, in a thick gold frame. And there I was, somewhere in the corner, kindergarten age, face half lit, crooked smile. I took the frame down, quietly, slid the photo from its glass, unwrapped the frame I brought, slipped my magazine page inside. Hung it where Denise's had been. I placed my kindergarten photo on the hallway table, added a post-it, your turn to remember. Then I walked back into the kitchen, said nothing, waited. It didn't take long. Dad noticed first. His eyes flicked to the wall, then to me. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Mom followed. Her body stiffened, jaw tightening just enough for me to catch. Denise smirked. Well, she said, you're really claiming your spotlight, huh? I met her gaze. Was it ever anyone else's to claim? The room went still. No one clapped. No one congratulated. But no one moved the frame either. That silence wasn't rejection. It was acceptance, under protest. I stood to leave not long after. Picked up my coat, handed Mom the old frame, still holding my kindergarten picture. Thought you might want this back. She smiled tightly. You're quite the statement maker these days. I smiled back. No. I'm just making sure mine doesn't get edited out again. Outside, the sun had dropped low, painting the sidewalk in quiet gold. As I walked to my car, a neighbor passing by glanced at the BMW and said, "That car suits you." I opened the door, turned once over my shoulder, and replied, "So does everything else I worked for." They knew my segment was airing. I'd sent the text an hour before it came on, dropped it into the group chat. Short, polite, unemotional. Channel 3, 6:15. I'm being featured in the Women in Design series. Not one response. I didn't expect fanfare, but I expected maybe a thumbs up, something. Instead, I walked into the living room of my parents' house and saw Dad already sunk into his recliner, remote in hand, TV on mute as the channel logo faded to the program. My name flashed across the bottom of the screen. I stood behind the couch, hands still on my bag strap, waiting. 2 seconds in, just as the host said, "Joining us now is Sacramento's own Marina Vaughn." Click. The screen jumped to a football game. Preseason. No one playing that anyone actually followed. Dad didn't even glance at me. "You weren't going to watch that?" I asked. He shrugged. "We get the idea." That was it. Not congrats. Not, "You looked good on camera." Just, "We get the idea." Mom emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of mini quiches like nothing had happened. I swallowed hard and said nothing, because if I had opened my mouth then, I wouldn't have stopped. Later, after the food was served and the small talk dulled into background noise, I stepped into the hallway. Just needed to breathe, to reset. That's when I heard my aunt's voice. Clara. Loud enough to be heard, soft enough to pretend she hadn't meant to be. "She's got drive, sure, but she's not like the rest of us." Another woman asked, "You mean Marina?" Clara laughed, short and sweet. "She's always been a bit different. Not really part of the family fabric, you know." And there it was. The confirmation. Spoken out loud. Finally. I didn't interrupt. I didn't storm in. I just stood there, listening. A memory came flooding back. Family reunion, 1998. I was 12. The photographer said there were only 10 frames left on the roll. I was number 11. They told me to sit out. "We'll take another one with you later." They didn't. And I let them tell me that film was the problem. "Different," she said. "Different isn't the insult she thinks it is. It's the reason I survived them." Back at the table, I didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then, slowly, I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope, placed it next to my mother's wine glass. She paused mid-sentence, glanced down, then unfolded it. Her eyes scanned the printout, the scholarship email, dated and signed. The post-it attached read, "Still remember this?" She stiffened, just barely. I looked at her. "I used to think being silent was grace," I said. "Now I know it was complicity." Dad leaned back in his chair. "That was a long time ago, Marina." "So was respect." No one else said a word. I stood up, walked over to the TV. From my purse, I pulled a USB. Plugged it in. The screen lit up. A 2-minute clip. My acceptance speech from the National Design Summit. I pressed play. My voice filled the room. "To the little girls who were told their names didn't belong on the walls they built, this one's for you." No one moved, no one clapped, but no one turned it off. When it ended, I pulled the USB from the port, placed it back in my bag. Consider this my last scheduled performance in this role. I grabbed my coat. My eyes drifted to the wall. The framed magazine page from last week still hung beside Denise's graduation photo. They hadn't taken it down. Good. At the doorway, Denise looked up. "Nice speech," she said, smirking. "Oh, and thanks for the pearls." I paused. "You can keep them." Walked out. Outside, the sky had darkened. Rain threatened the edges of the city, hovering but not falling. I slid into the driver's seat of my BMW. Didn't cry, didn't smile, just breathed. I didn't win anything tonight. But I ended something. They can't forget me anymore. I don't need to be remembered. I just need to live. The apartment felt different that week. Not louder, not brighter, just clearer. I hadn't touched the group chat, didn't need to. There were no apologies waiting, and I wasn't fishing for them. The last dinner left no open questions, no half-finished lines, just air. The kind of air you breathe easier when you stop begging for oxygen from the people who keep holding their breath around you. Still, the world outside kept spinning. The magazine interview replayed twice on local TV. The online clip got shared more than I expected. Former classmates, old colleagues, even my old studio mentor commented, "About damn time people saw her." A week later, an email arrived. Subject, family dinner. Sunday at 6. Your name's at the top. I didn't flinch reading it. Just stared at the screen a moment, then closed the tab. That alone felt like progress. On Sunday, I arrived 10 minutes early, parked right up front. No shame in being seen now. The door opened before I knocked. Mom this time. No performance. No tight smile. "Come in," she said. The table was set for 4. For once, there was a name card. Mine, centered. There was no banner, no speech. But over the fireplace, beside Denise's usual cluster of framed achievements, stood a new photo. Me, from the hotel opening, in full color, no awkward cropping. No one mentioned it, no one needed to. We sat, talked about the weather, about an upcoming holiday weekend. Dad asked me about a new client, his first real question in months. I answered calmly, without performing for praise. Mom brought out dessert, lemon bars, the kind she used to pack in my lunchbox before Denise joined high school and started ballet. I used to think she'd forgotten I liked them. She placed one in front of me. Didn't say a word. Denise handed me a small box. I opened it. Inside, the silver ring I'd once gifted our mother, the one that had somehow ended up on Denise's hand. She didn't explain. Just looked at me, waiting. I smiled softly, nodded once. "Thanks," I said. I didn't lose it. I just let it go. That was it. No one said sorry. But they didn't have to. That meal wasn't reconciliation. It was surrender, maybe, or understanding. or the best they could do with the tools they had. Later that night, back home, I was organizing old journals when something slipped out between the pages. A folded letter. The paper had aged, edges curled slightly. The handwriting was unmistakable. Grandma. She'd passed before I finished college, but the letter had been tucked away. Undelivered. Unread. I opened it slowly. You'll do things they won't understand, and that's okay. You weren't made to be quiet. It broke something in me, but not in the way people expect. I didn't cry out of pain. I cried because I finally felt seen, even if the one who saw me had already gone. I pinned the letter above my desk. Wrote at the top in ink, "For when I forget who I am." Next to it, I placed the old family photo I had once torn down. But now, my image was added in. A collage edit. Me, smiling, front and center. Not perfect, but present. This time, I took the picture, and I chose what to keep. The next morning, I ran into my old professor at a cafe. He asked if I'd mentor a new intern. Young, quiet, but talented. I said yes without hesitation. Somebody had to be the woman they needed when no one was that for me. At the studio, I hung 2 frames, side by side. On the left, the hotel award. On the right, the new family photo. Only one bore a signature. Mine, sharp, black, permanent. You don't always get the apology, I whispered to myself. But you do get the final word. That night, I posted just one line. Sometimes you have to be your own witness. Thanks for watching. I see you too.